Well, welcome everyone to our February 11th, 2025 regular meeting of the Waynesboro Area School District Board of Directors. For those of us that are here in the room, we'll go ahead and stand with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Ms. Hennicle, since we have some here, some absent, and some online, if we could do roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Smith,
Here.
Ms. Fortney,
Here.
Dr. Royer.
Yep.
Dr. Royer. I can see your lips moving. Mr. Hamburger,
Here.
Ms. Miles,
Here.
Ms. Zimmerman,
Here.
Mr. Pence,
Here.
Ms. Straight is not in today. Mr. Marvin.
Here. All right, thank you. That now brings us to the approval of the agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the
So moved.
agenda. We have a first, is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion or updates? Right, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. That now brings us to the approval of our minutes from our last regular meeting, which was January 28th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
First, Mr. Smith, and a second. Any discussion or updates? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Or any abstentions? Right? Seeing none, motion carries. That then brings us to our superintendent report. Dr. Schorlein.
Thank you, Mr. Marvin. WASD would like to offer our condolences to the family of Alma Oyer. Over the years, she has been incredibly generous in so many projects and programs for our learners, and we want to, obviously offer our condolences to the family, and we're eternally grateful for her contributions to the district. Big thank you to our Rotary, local Rotary, for assisting with financial literacy with our WASH's learners. It was a great day for budget learning. Cheerleaders are back from Florida. It's my understanding that they had one of their highest scores. They were not able to continue in the competition, but obviously they had a really great time. We had our first FID day this past week or last week. We also have an early dismissal on Thursday, and Friday we have a teacher in service day. And we also held kindergarten orientation in the buildings in preparation for the class of 2038.
Thank you, Dr. Schorlein. So that then brings us to our public comment.
I did not
We
receive.
did not receive any. All right, so we will continue on. Up next, we have our presentations, and so we have the iReady math update. So who will be taking that? Is that you, Dr. Deshawn? Can't quite hear you, Dr. Deshawn, if you want to. Give us a minute, we'll figure out the.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Just
All right. Good evening, everybody. We are glad. How many times do you say that? That used to be the commercial, right? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right, glad to be here tonight, virtually speaking, and glad to see everybody online and in person at Clayton. We are excited to do a mid-year update with iReady. We've been using it now for a half a year, about 6 months or so. So we're pretty excited about it. Dr. Winecoop, she's been working in the buildings with the teachers. We've had visits from Marcus. He's our kind of our curriculum instructional guy that's been helping our teachers. He actually was at Hooverville today. Mrs. Everhart was a little sad because she didn't get the full day with Marcus today because of the early dismissal. but we've been working him, and he's getting around all the buildings. So go ahead, Jason. Are you able to move that slide, Jason, or not? There we go. Okay, go ahead. Next one. Dr. Winecoop and I are just going to kind of be piggybacking together on this. You want to go ahead, Dr. Winecoop?
Sure. Just to refresh your memory, the iReady components, the way the program is set up, the framework for instruction is a try, discuss, connect. Students are to try to do something, talking with their peers, a lot of discourse, and then make connections to the real world. Each student gets an individual learning path based on a diagnostic that they took. We took one in September, and then again here in January, and they get personalized instruction and something called Fluency Flight, which is for grades 2 to 5 for students to work on their fact fluency.
And if you guys have any questions along the way, just please go ahead and shout out and ask. But we're just really impressed because the Try, Discuss, Connect framework, it really is about discourse, like Dr. Winecoop said. It's about kids turning and talking about math with one another, problem solving together, thinking about different ways to approach problem solving and attacking a problem. So it's great to see. And I think some of you guys saw that, the board members, when we did our visits back in November. Specifically, it was Miss Byers' room, I think, when you had a chance to interact and see what the kids were doing. So go ahead, Mr. Cornell. Go ahead, Dr. Winecoop.
So for this school year, the first year of implementing a new program, one of the first goals we set was to get good data through the diagnostic, through the instruction, and through the learning path. Support teachers with the implementation. iReady sending us Marcus and all the professional development we've had from them, and their support has been absolutely amazing. And then to understand all the iReady classroom components, this program does have everything we could possibly want, which can be a little bit overwhelming. So we are still learning all of the different components of the program, how they work together to support our learners.
I can say this too. I just want to share, and I've said this numerous times in some of our front of our faculty and staff. And the bottom line is, with iReady, we truly do get the Jerry Maguire experience. And what I mean by that is, it's not just about show me the money. It truly is about a relationship and a connection and working alongside of you, which obviously Jerry Maguire and Rod Tidwell had, right? So that was the whole premise of the movie. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the relationship and the connection. And they have truly been with us pretty much every step of the way. And I mean, Marcus, and we have another gentleman named Casey. He responds emails at the drop of the hat. I mean, he's just good with the principals and Dr. Winecoop and myself. And he actually meets with us every month too at our principal meeting. We have him come into our elementary principal meeting, and he meets with us. We brainstorm and we go over the next steps as we continue to move forward. Go ahead, Mr. Cornell. Dr. Winecoop, you want to do what's going well, and I'll talk about the challenges and our concerns.
Okay. Teachers and students are enthusiastic about the program. That to me is critical to the success of the program. I'm hearing from teachers how pleasantly surprised they are that students want to work on their learning path. Sometimes if we have an indoor recess, kids will say, "Oh, can I jump on the computer and work and do my math work?" So that is very exciting for us. And just hearing students using the math language has been great. As Dr. DeShong said, the support from iReady with the implementation has been phenomenal. All of the resources available to reach the diverse population, and we have some slides later, they're going to show you not only how some of our struggling learners are doing well with the program, but some of our high achieving learners are continuing to grow within the program. And that is shown in our second diagnostic data that we think looks really good.
And you guys will get to see that here in a moment. So some of the things, just I think we need to extend grace to everybody, and we folks we want to learn it, we want to move. We got to remember, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So it's just as we go. I tell you, from the beginning of the year until now, it's been actually like from the beginning of the year till now, just like Dr. Weinkoop said, I mean, people are pretty they're feeling more comfortable about it. But with that being said, and Dr. Weinkoop mentioned the number of resources we have, it's really about learning more about those as we move through the program, getting teachers and our principals and all of us to like, okay, which ones do we want to use? Which one do we want to target with our learners? And that's something that Casey has been able to work with us on in our monthly principal meetings. The other thing that's come up on numerous occasions, and I really appreciate people realizing this and talking about this in our grade level coordinator meetings, as well as our principal meetings, is the pacing. You know, from building to building, we really want to provide that continuity throughout all the buildings. But with a new program, we're going to have some variances in that. And that's, again, where we're telling folks we need to extend grace. Marcus is working with us too on identifying where we can pick up some time and adjust the pacing on how it all works. You know, not that everybody has to be on the same lesson every single day, but we definitely want to be within a couple of lessons of one another per grade level as we go throughout the program. And Dr. Weinkoop, the fluency flight.
Yeah, with Fluency Flight, this is the first year out of beta testing for Fluency Flight for iReady. And there have been a few glitches with the program, which iReady has owned. So some teacher reports aren't updated as timely as teachers had wanted in the beginning, that kind of thing. And we're working through that. Also, this is a different way of learning fact fluency for our learners and our teachers. Gone are the days of, I'm going to send home, 100 +2 facts and have a student work every night through those +2 facts. Fluency Flight is really based on strategies of learning the math facts. So it's a little bit different shift. And some of the teachers, I'm going to say maybe panic is too strong of a word, but they're concerned because they're not seeing the same kind of things that they've seen in the past. And so a little patience with the program, let it work through the system and through the years. And I think we're going to see some great benefits from this in future years, year 2 and into year 3 and beyond.
Mr. Cornell, next slide. All right, so this slide here, we talk a little bit about growth and achievement. And so Dr. Weinkoop, I just kind of piggyback on one other here. The difference between growth and achievement is essentially growth is where we want a kid is right here. We want to see him go here. We want to see growth happen. Achievement is kind of like in a sense, to put it kind of simple, is let's say you got a kiddo in second grade. His achievement is at that second grade level. But let's say let's say we got a kid in third grade, okay, but operating at an achievement level of like a second grader. So what we want to do, although that kid's in third grade, that learns in third grade, we want to have that kid demonstrate growth to close that gap between the growth and achievement gap. Dr. Weinkoop, you want to piggyback on that? And then I think if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Cornell will click and things are going to pop up, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If you want to put it in terms of state testing, growth is the PVOS score that shows how much our learners have grown, and achievement is that first initial score that comes out that says proficient, basic, below basic, advanced kind of thing. And it's really great that our diagnostic will do both things for us and shows us both growth and achievement for students. So Jason, go ahead to the next one. In the iReady program, they identify 2 types of growth. Typical growth, which there's a good definition there, but that's basically the year's worth of growth for a year's worth of education, which is great for an on or even above grade level student. They're making progress through the years. It's not so good for a student, like Dr. Jashawn mentioned, that's working below grade level. So the program also identifies a stretch growth goal, ambitious but an attainable goal. It's not going to necessarily get a kid to grade level within 1 year. Their research is showing that 2 years of meeting stretch growth, the student has a very strong chance of being at grade level by the end of that second year. So it's a process. And even for those advanced kids, they have a stretch growth goal to even be advanced and work at a higher level. Go ahead, Jason. Okay, as a district, this was the data from our second diagnostic. This shows how far all of the learners in the district, if we line them all up, the student that's in the middle of that line, based on their diagnostic growth score, the student that's in the middle made 62% of a year's worth of growth at mid-year. The goal is for 50% at mid-year because it's an annual goal. So for us to be at 62%, it is quite an achievement. That 62%, half of our learners have at least 62% of their year's worth of growth already in January. There are questions about that because that one can be a little bit confusing. Okay, go ahead then, Jason. Thank you. This is the distribution of how many students met it. The far right number, 27% of our student population have met their year's worth of growth in January. Working through the program from teacher instruction, the learning path, fluency flight, all of those things have contributed to over a quarter of our students meeting that goal. Usually we like to see some kind of a bell curve with statistical data, but we see that the ends is a little bit more of a U. So we do need to have a little bit of work with that bottom 20%. But overall, I think having really 37% of our students meet or be very close to meeting a year's worth of growth in January speaks a lot to the program. Go ahead, Jason. And then this is the same idea, just by grade level. You can see in our fifth grade, 67% of our students were at least at that 50% mark, 48 in fourth grade, third grade, 57%, and so forth. I can speak to kindergarten. I know that looks like a low number for kindergarten, but our kindergarten learners did not take the diagnostic in the second week of school, like all of our other learners did, because they were still learning how to be students in a school. So they didn't take that diagnostic until October. So they didn't have as much time between diagnostics to make the type of growth that we wanted to see. Like they couldn't get to 50% because it really wasn't 50% of their year. It's closer to 40%. So kindergarten working at a 46% rate is a good number. It's a good solid number. And then the next slide talks about how many learners made the overall stretch growth, that ambitious goal. And that 8% of learners, and I will say that 8% is across achievement levels, which we will look at. Some of these students who met that stretch growth are really high achieving students, and some of them are our most struggling learning support students who met their stretch growth goals for the year. Again, we'd like to see more of a bell curve, or at least skewed a little more to the right. But again, we're still working in first year of implementation with the program, so we have some learning to do here. Okay, go ahead. And this is the percent of students who met at least half of their stretch growth goal at mid-year. First grade really poured it on and did well. 62% of our first graders have made that stretch growth goal. Okay. Looking at anything you want to add to the growth part, Dr. Deschamps?
No, thanks.
Okay. The other thing that we look at is achievement. The colored bar that you see across the top are the second diagnostic results. The numbers you see down at the bottom where it says from 4%, from 9%, and so forth, that was the first diagnostic number. So looking at this data, and I need my glasses to be able to see it here. I'm going to start at the far right, where it was the red with the lines through it. Students that were 3 or more grade levels below grade level. On the fall diagnostic, 6% of our population was there. At the second diagnostic, that's down to 2. But really significant, for 2 grade levels below, 18% on the first diagnostic dropped to 8% on this second diagnostic. The yellow is that transition. You have to go through yellow to get to green. So our learners who were in the red on the first diagnostic have now shifted into that yellow, but still that number dropped. 63% were 1 grade level below, down to 52% at mid-year.
Dr. Weintraub, if we might add, when we're saying 1 grade level below, we have to remember that our kids like coming into third grade, we're midway and we're saying they're like at 2.5, like they didn't finish third grade yet either. So we have to remember that that yellow might be a little bit larger, but they're still working through the grade level they're in right now. So, but again, like Dr. Wynkoop said, this is a great visual because you get to see how each one has shrunk from the beginning of the year to where we're at right now. And it'll be really cool to see what this looks like at the end of the year.
Yeah, and super excited for that, the green number that went from about 13% of kids who were at or above grade level in the fall, up to 28% of our learners reached grade level standards by that second diagnostic. Now, early on grade level, with the iReady folks in their definitions, doesn't mean as a timeline, as like September, what they're looking at are the number of standards. They have met some of the standards. Mid-grade level is they have met about half of the standards for that grade level. So it's not a timeline as much it is as a list of standards that the students have met. Okay, go ahead. So what did teachers do with this diagnostic data? Well, they filled in a quadrant grid. So go ahead, Jason, to the next one. This is going to be probably a lot of information all at once. Every teacher in the district sat and looked at their individual diagnostic data and filled in a quadrant. The upper right quadrant are students who made at least 50% of their growth and were at or above grade level. District-wide, about 29% of our students were in that quadrant. They made at least their 50% growth and achievement. On the left quadrant, or the purple one, that's also showing high growth, but they were not at grade level. So we have some learners, I know that we have a 5th grade learner started in at a kindergarten level and met their growth score. Now they're working at 1st grade level. So they did meet their growth score. They grew for over a year, but they're still not at grade level. So they would fall into that quadrant. So the top is great. That's our growth. We love that. Quadrant 3 in the bottom left, that's the lower growth. Those students did not make their growth percentage and they're below grade level. So that's a quadrant that teachers really focused on. And when Marcus came here from iReady, he gave us some great strategies and data places to look at those individuals and really delve down into what's going on with that child, specifically, individually, and what can we do to help them. And then the bottom right quadrant, lower growth but high performance. These are typically your very high achieving students that don't have a lot of room to grow. They are the hardest population to grow. Each teacher, and that's okay, you can keep going, Jason. On Friday, each teacher grade level has that data by grade level. So they will be looking at their individual report, a grade level report, as well as the district report, just to see how they fall and what they can do. This I included because, well, okay, this was kind of a personal to me. I felt when we started the iReady program, 5th grade students would be the most resistant to this different way of teaching. Math students are very used to an I do, we do, you do setup in a math classroom. The teacher stands there, shows them how to do it, gives them the notes. We do a couple of examples and then they go off on their own. Try, Discuss, Connect is very different. Really pushes learners to explain their thinking. So I figured 5th grade would be the most difficult to transition over to this way. And I did have one teacher tell me the second week of school, they said, Donna, the kids are just sitting there staring at me. So, well, they're waiting for you to teach the way you used to teach, but wait them out and we'll get there. So on the second diagnostic, I looked at the national percentile rank. We had 6 students rank in the 99th percentile, which is the highest rank that you can achieve. They did better than 99% of their peers across the country on this diagnostic. And I thought, well, how much did they really grow? How much did our top kids grow? So I pulled their fall percentile ranks to see where they were in the fall, and then their growth scores. Our top kids well exceeded typical growth. Our learner there at the bottom grew 3 times a year's worth of growth in a half a school year. And their stretch growth scores are there as well. To me, this was very exciting, very telling. Knowing that these kids are the hardest population to grow, to look at these growth score numbers, I was super excited about that. So then I thought, well, okay, let me look at some middle of the road kids. So the next slide, kids that in this fall diagnostic, we're at about the 50th percentile. Like where did our middle kids go? And you can see it's all over the board. And the middle kids, some of them grew, absolutely. Some of them were flat. And some of them showed, we'll say maybe negative growth or maybe didn't quite grow in a positive way that we wanted them to. So those are the kids that teachers, again, those would be in that third quadrant. Teachers are delving down into those kids that didn't grow and were not achieving those scores. And I would be real skeptical if I were you, if I stood in front of you and said, every kid in the district grew 100%. It's now, no child got left behind. 100% of the kids grew 100%. With any program we have, we're working with little humans and they sometimes do things we don't expect. So then I looked at our lowest ranking students, those who struggle the most. And their fall percentile ranks were in the single digits. And these are our most struggling learners. I would say of this group here, I think about 6 of them do have IEPs. They're learning support students, but still many of them were reaching that typical growth. And I think that speaks to the program. We've got one kiddo there that made 200% of their typical growth, which to me, this showed we've got both ends. Our high achievers and our struggling learners can still grow with this program. So I am actually, super excited to see what our PVOS data looks like next year and see if this holds true and translates. That's a lot of numbers on a screen. I know that. Are there any questions about all of that I went through? And thank you to Todd for letting me keep those slides in because I was excited about them.
All right, Mr. Cornell.
All right, keep going. Average weekly usage. Go ahead, Todd.
Just real quick, this is a really cool slide only because what it essentially shows is we were again that try, discuss, connect, and the whole the path piece as well as basically this shows that we have been meeting the goal across the district, kindergarten through 5th grade, with being in the recommended not the exact path, the path for iReady to be in. So you can see that the bottom is the percent of the lessons that are passed, which is looking pretty good. And this is where we want kids to be in around the ballpark range of 40 minutes a week on the path. So essentially that could be 10 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes a day or every other day in iReady. So this just shows you that our folks are using it as to what the program is calling for. So, go ahead, Mr. Cornell. And hey, so we're again, like Dr. Wykoop said, first of all, I want to say this. I want to give a huge shout out and kudos to our teachers because it's not just a program doesn't teach, but it's the right tool in the hands of experts, which are our teachers, and how they have really just embraced this. They have really took this on. Our principals, our building administrators. It's been a tremendous team effort as we have moved forward to get the results that we have, we've got here at the mid-year that Dr. Wykoop just shared. As you all know too, we're kind of now looking and putting a focus, continuing to keep it on the elementary, but we are also now looking at our middle school. Mr. DeAngelis and the math team there, and Dr. Wykoop has been involved. We actually had an elementary representative and a high school representative. We visited 2 districts last week, Derry Township, up in Hershey to look at Carnegie, and then we also went to a little small district called Juniata Valley. It wasn't necessarily the size of the school we were considering, but in that particular case, we wanted to see school and talk with folks who were actually using iReady kindergarten through 8th grade. Some people use it just in the elementary, and there's other districts that use it at just the middle school, but we wanted to meet and talk with the district that using it occasionally. Both programs, Carnegie and iReady, get high marks on edreports.gov, which does all kind of the testing across the board on usability, effectiveness, meeting the standards, and so forth. And they've got both really high marks. This coming Friday in our in-service day, we're going to be having a discussion, sit down with our math team to kind of just I guess kind of digest what we've seen, what we saw, what we're thinking about, as we move forward here. So, does anybody have any other questions? Is there another slide there? I think there's one more. Yeah, we did that. Just talked about that. Next one, and then our closing slide. See what we did here? We went from WOW to MOM, and if you forget what MOM stands for, that is Minds on Math. And we have had our minds on math, and we are just so excited about it. And we just are really excited about all the work that our teachers and our principals have been doing. So does anybody have anything? I'm sorry we went a few minutes longer than we anticipated, but does anybody have any questions before we move on to the next agenda items?
This is Kim. I know you're not ready to make a decision yet, but is iReady got a leg up on the other one because we're using it successfully in the elementary schools, or are they at pretty much equal basis right now when you're looking at them?
So I think it's a really good question, Mrs. Miles. Both programs have a lot to offer. The one concern, like, some people would say yes, because of the continuity and consistency, the language, you're not going to have any lag between fifth going to sixth, seventh, and eighth, the vocabulary, the similarities, and so forth. But then there's another flip to the flip coin to that is, are kids going to be like readied out? Is there going to be too much of the same thing that they're moving into now? Some could argue that, and others would say, no, it's a really good thing for that to happen. So that's going to be part of the discussion that we're going to be having here coming up Friday and over the next few weeks as we continue to kind of mull over it and
Okay.
think through it a little bit more. So
Good answer, Todd.
no, yeah. Well, I tell you honestly, our math team, and Dr. Weinkoop can tell you this. We had some just great folks. I mean, it's the Mr. Crew, the sister, the Jan, the two. What are the two sisters, Dr. Weinkoop? Mrs. Crew and
Mrs. Eskridge.
Mrs. Eskridge, Mr. Dennis. Mr. Dennis was along. I want to say their other names. I always call them the wrong names. But Mr. Dennis was on board. Like I said, Mrs. Byers was there from the 5th grade, so she could kind of speak and see. And Mr. Pricer came from. He also joined us, and Mr. DeAngelis. And again, it was just a real good visit, good discussions on the van ride up and back about math. And yeah, we're just excited about it. And but thanks. Anybody else have any other questions?
My degree is in math, so
we need guest teachers.
I'm a math nerd.
We need guest teachers. Come on in.
Hey,
Curious as
This is Linda.
they think
And-
of WOW to MOM. So any other questions for Dr. Deshawn or Dr. Weinkoop?
yeah,
No,
Dr.
there's no question, except this is Linda.
Go ahead, Ms. Zimmerman.
Okay, and again, I want to thank Dr. Deshawn and the entire elementary team, because they spent many, many hours exploring these things, and it appears as though, they've made good decisions. But I also would like to thank the administration for including teachers' input. I think that has been vital. One other thing I'd like to say is, with all these things, again, you've hit us with lots and lots of information tonight, but it appeared to me that the first and second graders were really high in scoring. Is that right or not?
I would say they generally had some high growth scores. Yes, they are the closest to grade level. When you come into kindergarten, there is really nothing below that, but early kindergarten. But were just little sponges, yes. And they really showed their knowledge. And their teachers were wonderful. I mean, kindergartners should be taking an assessment on a device and still show that kind of growth and achievement, I think is amazing.
Yeah, well, and the reason I say these first and second graders, this is the beginning of this whole process. So they have not been introduced to other things beforehand. So it just seems like this has worked really, really well for them. So
Yeah, the hope is if it works well in kindergarten, first grade, the gaps in achievement won't be as wide as we go up through the years.
yes, and that's what I sort of saw from, what you presented tonight. So that's wonderful. Gosh.
Dr.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman.
Dr. DeShawn and Dr. Wynkoop, thank you for sharing the data with us. Because the program was fairly expensive, and so it's good to be able to justify the funds that were expended for the program, and to show our general public that this research-based program is beneficial to our students. I have a question about so so two questions. The first one is, have you seen that the data, this data, especially for these kids who are progressing, is it translating into better performance in the classroom as far as grades? So are these, is the data sort of resulting in better grades for students? That's the first question. The next question is for the students who are kind of remaining stagnant. As you visit some of the other schools that are using this program, are there certain trends or characteristics you're seeing in students who are sort of remaining stagnant, who are using the program?
I'll do the first one, Dr. Wynkoop, if you want to take the second one. The first one, I'll just share this, though, Mr. Smith and everybody, if you guys remember, we did switch to a standard base grading. So in the beginning of the year, in the fall here, so we're transitioning through that right now. So again, it's not necessarily based on like an A or a B or a percentage type grade, but it really is. It's dependent upon our kids meeting the goals for that specific standards. And to when Dr. Wynkoop was sharing, some of the data and some of the specific graphs and so forth, and as she shared that bar graph, it wasn't like it was a timeline, but what that is, that's how they're moving through the standards and they're growing. So that yellow group, we need to close that yellow group down and get them more green. But we have a good group of green going on too. And if you notice our red group early on, that red group was also starting to shrink. So we want the red group to kind of like totally go away. And we want that to be absorbed up into a little bit of yellow and a lot of green as we get to the end of the year. And again, those yellows and greens, they represent, the standards that they're working through, Mr. Smith. So to answer your question, yes on that one. So Dr. Wynkoop, do you want to speak to that, to the second part?
Yeah, as far as kids, let's say, who are stagnant, teachers were looking at that third quadrant of kids, which was a low growth, low performing. We had, if I remember from the slide correctly, about 500 students district-wide that were in that situation. When you break that down, that is less than about 8 students per teacher, that they're really honing in on those kids individually, and seeing what's going on with those kids. Not to give some things away, some students have had, significant family events, some have had significant medical issues happen. And the diagnostic is one data point in time. And we do want to remember that as well. We have not talked with other buildings that are using iReady to see what their strategies are. We have talked with our iReady rep, Marcus. That's what he has been doing. He met with each of our 4 buildings and met with every single grade level individually in each building and delve into that data with those kids and gave suggestions as what we can do from using the resources within the program to help those students.
And
Does
I
that
think
answer
as
your
we move-
question?
Yes.
Yeah,
thank-
and
yeah.
I think too, as we move forward, Mr. Smith, after we kind of get a good foundation, with a year under our belt and we'll continue to move forward, that's something we can certainly look to also as we move forward. Again, we got a half year in, and so we still got a half year to get through a full year of it, and then we want to make adjustments as we move forward. But yeah, we're going to continue to hone in on that for sure. And that's part of the reason why we have the data meetings at the building. And again, some of the graphs and stuff you saw, a lot of this is all generated right from iReady. So it's pretty slick. It's pretty slick. So.
Mhm. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, I have a comment I just wanted to make. First of all, really nice job, Dr. Weinkoop and Dr. DeShong. Thank you for putting all this together. I think I need some time to digest it. I think it's really important, though, that we recognize this is really good initial data and certainly good news. I'm sure some of it was surprising to you and to the teachers, but there also sometimes is an implementation dip, and you may not see great things toward the end of the year, but hopefully you do. I just want to make it clear that we don't expect, I don't expect, I won't talk on behalf of the whole board, the data to necessarily justify the program at this point. We needed the program. We trusted that you made a good idea. I don't want teachers to feel that that we're looking at their performance. Do you know what I'm saying, as to whether or not we made a good decision in implementing this program? Does that make sense?
Yes, I totally agree. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Roy. Yeah, because a lot of times after you get a new program, like you said, there can and often is an implementation dip. So I know Juniata Valley, they have used it 2 years now, K through 8. And I think they were the one place where they saw a lot of growth, and you can share, Dr. Weinkoop, it was with their lower learners. They showed their lower learners showed a lot of growth, because I know we did, and I know Dr. Sternheim did, looked at that school's PVOS data, as well as up at Derry Township also. So but yeah, thank you for sharing that, Dr. I appreciate that.
Last things. Okay, why don't we thank you very much, Dr. Sean. Thank you, Dr. Weinkoop. Appreciate the work that you
Thank
have
you guys.
done to begin this and implement it. And a big thank you to our teachers as well, starting a new math program. So on that, we will go ahead and keep moving through our agenda. We have no student board representatives tonight, so we will go directly to our board reports. And so we will start with our policy committee. Anything from policy, Mr. Pence?
Nothing new. Next policy committee is February 27th, 3 to 4 p.m.
All righty, thank you. We'll move on to academic. Anything from Dr. Royer, Dr. Deshawn in terms of the academic committee?
No, we'll be meeting on, we moved our meeting date to March 25th, so that we can have some information regarding curricular implementations next year and what that impact might be on the budget.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. We're going to keep moving then to our facilities committee. Anything, Mr. Smith?
No, we will meet. I'm sorry. Yeah, we will meet on Tuesday. Let me pull up the date. We're meeting on the 18th of February at, I believe we're meeting at WAMS.
All righty, so Williams is on our maybe summer to-do list in terms of some updating around the middle school. And then that brings us to our budget committee. Mr. Hamburger, are you willing to do that update?
Well, since we just spent the last half hour talking about mathematics, I'm not going to bore you to death with numbers. But suffice it to say, the budget is in a state of flux because the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is in a state of flux as far as its budget is concerned. Initially, based upon the expenditures we project and the revenues, we were going to have a essentially a surplus of about $350,000. However, the governor's budget includes obviously funds for us, but they are about $600,000 less than we'd anticipated. Now, again, the governor's budget and the legislator's budget are both irrelevant, and it will be a compromise. But we're going to do our best to make sure there's no tax increase. As a matter of fact, we discussed starting an early review, because as Ronald Reagan said, budgeting is not a matter of revenues, it's a matter of expenditures. And we might have to ask the folks to start slightly pruning, because even if we get what the governor recommended for us to get, we would only have a $300,000 deficit. And out of an $87 million budget, I think we can find that money. I do want to bring up a letter that we received from Senator Massantonio. And of course, being a Republican and the governor being a Democrat, he doesn't like the governor's budget. But I do want to point out some things that irritated me, even though I voted for the guy several times. He basically says that this is a way to pay back the teachers. When in fact, I'm not a big union guy. I think everybody knows that, but you got to be fair to your people. But Commonwealth of Pennsylvania had an inadequate funding policy and a formula for how long? Several decades, correct?
Sir.
And the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Supreme Court said, you've been underfunding certain school districts for years, and so you've got to come up with, what, about $5 billion to rectify that. And so you don't come up with $5 billion overnight. And the senator points out that they're spending an average of $23,000 per student. Well, Waynesboro is spending around $13,000. So we are not wasting our money. And I'm personally going to write a letter or maybe meet with them and say, okay, it's fine to discuss fiscal prudence, but where's our money? It's basically. So show me the money, as someone earlier said. So we're working on it. And quite frankly, since the legislature never passes a budget on time, or rarely, we will probably be into May until we have some fairly decent figures, correct?
Yes, sir. I think, don't quote me, 17 out of 23 times they've not passed the budget in time.
Well, we won't coach you, but
Right,
everybody
yeah.
heard it.
But maybe, yeah, I think our goal is to, probably try to have something approved in May. So typically that's what we try to, or early June at the latest.
Alrighty, well, thank you all for those committee reports. The committees I mentioned are all open to the public, and so you're more than welcome to come and attend those. And we always have riveting discussions at budget committee, so you are more than welcome to come to that. I love a good Excel spreadsheet, but please feel free to come and hear what's going on, and if you have things you would like to say, there are public comment portions at those committee meetings. So we're going to continue on in our meeting through personnel. Up first is personnel. I think that's you, Dr. Deshawn.
Thank you, Mr. Marvin. Appreciate it. Yeah, we have a number of items on the personnel agenda here tonight we're seeking your approval for. First of all, I think most of you know we had kind of lost two science teachers to another district just because of closer to home, and we couldn't fault them for that, certainly, but we do appreciate the work they gave us here at WASD. And but we're been on a search for certified science folks. It's kind of a tricky time of the year because a lot of springs are kind of your biggest time when you have people graduating, certified folks. So at this point in time, we're able to secure 2 long-term sub-position or teaching positions at this point in time, depending, a number of things with certifications and so forth. But we're seeking approval for Sharon D. Moen as well as Emma Histong to be over at WAMS in the science position there. We're moving on then to some resignations. I think that most of us can say that it is with regret. Colleen Gildee is going to be resigning to move near family. And of course, we are very happy for her to be near her family and her grandkids, and her sons and so forth and family. So, but she's been a tremendous asset to the district. Her demeanor and just she's brought a real nice even kill, I think, to the whole team. And I think everybody has nothing but really good things to say about Colleen. We truly appreciate her and wish her the best in her next chapter in Tennessee and her new work too. So best to you, Colleen, and thanks again for all you did for WASD in your 2 years here. We're also resignation of Laura Kiesling. We really appreciate Laura and all she's done for the district too. She sort of made history, I think, maybe in a sense. Mr. Weatherall, I'm not sure, she was, I think, the first MTSS and Dean of Students out there at Maury. But she did a really nice job, and I know Mr. Weatherall and the team out there is going to miss her, but she's moved on to another role. So, but thank you, Laura, for your work that you did in Waynesboro Area School District. We also have a retirement. We want to thank Polly Oster for her 22 years of service to Waynesboro. So thank you, Polly and Beth, in your retirement. We have 3 support staff resignations. We have 4 reassignments and 1 support staff change in hours. And then there are 5 support staff appointments we're seeking your approval for, as well as a coaching staff appointment. And then there are 4 requests for leave. So,
Thank you, Dr. Deshawn. So is there a motion to approve the personnel as listed?
So moved.
I so move.
All right, I'll have a first and a second. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. All right, up next, we have an overnight trip.
So this would be for the wrestlers. They are, I believe we have 4 individuals that are qualifying for sectionals. So the recommendation is to approve the overnight trip.
All right, is there a motion to approve the overnight trip for the Waynesboro Boys Varsity Wrestling?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was a delayed affirm. All right. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. All right, up next, we have a new Washes Club for discussion.
yeah, thanks, Mr. Marvin. So this is you guys have all seen this in the Friday folder. We've attached numerous documents, the bylaws, and so forth, and actually their own kind of billiards curriculum that they're going to be working through. I think I shared that with you before Christmas too. I know Dr. Stern-Hein was able to visit Pockets individually. I was also and meet with Ron Namendorf, and they presented to you guys all too. And then just this past week, or last week there, Dr. Stern-Hein, myself, and Dr. McCallum were able to visit. They had a chamber mixer there at Pockets. It's over there by WBO. If you haven't had a chance to visit, I recommend you go and see it. It's a really nice place. They've done a wonderful job, and they have some really big plans too for some of the other space they have in that building. But yeah, so we're looking for your approval on the billiards club. If you haven't met Ron Namendorfer, I think he did come to speak, but if you get a chance to sit down and talk to him, he's a real fascinating fella. He's got a real heart for just really wanting to do this for our learners, and um, he's a fascinating story to tell too. I don't. You have to ask him sometime. He actually was a clothing salesman in Washington D.C. and New York, I believe, and some big fancy clothing stores. But a real fascinating guy, and again, good heart, and really some good plans. But again, all the documents were before you guys. Do you have any questions about the Pockets Billiards Club that we're seeking your approval for?
First we'll do, is there a motion to approve the club as listed?
Move to approve.
I have a first and a second here with, is there any questions, comments, further discussion with this?
Yeah, Dr. DeShong, I just want to clarify, I wasn't able to visit. I know my husband was, and he said they had a lot of equipment there. One of the things that came up at academic committee that they said they would make sure they took care of was that, I saw in here that students can bring their own equipment. I just want to make sure that if they don't have their own, that it's available to them and not at a cost.
Yes, so the students, learners can do that. I know that his plan also was to ask chamber members to make donations for stick purchases for students to be able to have those. So again, he showed us, the tables that they'd be working on. They're going to have their own section. They're going to kind of like show it off or whatever. And then they also have like a classroom in the facility too, big screen TV where they'll be showing different, just pole techniques, and again the geometry behind it, and how to do better and get better in shots and stuff. So they got a lot of instructional videos. But yes, again, I know that they're working with chamber members, and I forget how many he had at that point. So there actually was a fella. There was a couple learners that were already there playing pool that were from Washes, and the one fella actually was. I wouldn't want to play him. I mean, he was he's pretty good. So, but yeah.
So just to clarify, if I'm a student, I want to join the club and I show up with my $3 and I don't have a pool cue, they're going to give me one to play.
Yeah, they have a lot there too, Dr. Royer, that kids would be able to use.
Okay, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, they won't be out. I mean, that's not going to be something that Ron's gonna, like, if you don't have a stick, you can't be here. That's not going to happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? I'm not seeing or hearing any other questions or discussion, so we will go ahead and move to a vote. So all those in favor of approving the Washes Club, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
8 ball in the side pocket.
Yes. I do appreciate how we have a community member involved in this club, and how there's a partnership between the community and our students and our learners. So I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about with this new club. So continuing on in our agenda, the 2027 electric contract. So you, Dr. Holtzman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we are in a consortium with several other school districts, Franklin, Adams, and York counties. We typically buy our utilities as a group and get competitive rates by doing that. We're now looking out into the 2027 school year. So we're asking for approval of a contract to continue going through that step and through those processes for utilities.
Great, thank you. So before us is a motion to approve the master agreement with the Direct Energy Business and Energy Business with the LIU Joint Purchasing Board. So is there a motion to approve as listed? First, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. Any additional questions or discussion? All Right, seeing and hearing no questions or additional discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
As we continue, we have medical insurance rates. I think these next several are going to be you, Dr. Holtzman.
Yes, sir.
So,
Thank you. So we are in a trust. We're along with 23 other school districts in total. Again, predominantly Franklin, Adams, York counties. There's an outlier or two from there. But we are effectively self-insured. We're really in the trust to share two resources. One is the admin cost to process the claims, and the second part is to share stop-loss insurance. So there's value in us being in a larger group for there. But essentially, our claims are our claims. We've had several years where unfortunately we had very high claim rates, but this last year, those claims did come down a good bit. So the projected rates that we would need to increase that to keep our fund balance in place with the medical is about 4%. We could always take a funding holiday if our claims drop even more, because that money is our money. It's in our bank account, so to speak, sitting there with the trust itself. So again, we have that flexibility, which is nice to do. And then we also have comparisons there to show you what the rates would be for employees. This is a year where things are moving up a little bit in terms of contracts for employee share. So we're reflecting that here in those numbers as well.
great. Thank you, Dr. Holtzman. So is there a motion to approve the 25-26 medical insurance rates for employees, retirees, and
Just have
COBRA
one
participants?
question. Do we fund the retirees or do they pick up that cost?
Retirees pick up the full cost plus a 2% admin fee.
Okay.
And then at one point in time, you could stay on past the age of 65 as a retiree, depending on some other factors. But that has not been permitted probably at least since the last contract or two. So probably at least 5 or 6 years, maybe longer. Yeah.
So do I have a motion to approve?
I so move.
All right, I have a first and a second with Mr. Hamburger and Mrs. Zimmerman. Any further discussion or questions? Last thing I'll say before we vote, this is one of the rare things I've seen where our health insurance costs have not skyrocketed, but ours have remained relatively flat, if not gone down a little bit. So this is one of the biggest drivers of cost for any employer is health insurance, but it is a benefit to our employees. So we'll go ahead and vote. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Motion carries. Right, we are marching forward. So the Franklin Learning Center general operating budget.
Yes, sir. So the Franklin Learning Center is actually owned by the participating school districts here in the Franklin County area. We do have students that come into that facility from outside of there. They are charged a higher rate, but this is essentially the cost just to run that building. So this is for the maintenance of the building, utilities. It includes the secretarial staff, nurse, things of that nature. It does not include the actual program. So if you actually have the teacher costs, those are billed in a separate way. In fact, we approved the general operating budget for the IU, I believe at a meeting or two ago. So those costs are separate from here, but this is really just to run that facility and that building itself. They are going to keep the cost the same on a per student per day basis is how we're billed for that facility. But they are going to start increasing the cost for districts that don't own the building itself. And they're going to do that because we have to make some capital improvements to that building coming up in the future. We've pushed that project back another year, but they're going to start paying more of a share to help offset those capital costs, starting with this year's budget. So if it's so approved by a majority of the school boards.
So again, just to reemphasize, this motion is for the operating budget, not for the planned capital project that was pushed back a year. So this is just the operating budget for the Franklin Learning Center. So is there a motion to approve the Franklin Learning Center general operating budget for 25-26? There a
I
motion?
so move.
All right, so Ms. Zimmerman, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Smith as our second. Any additional questions or comments regarding the operating budget?
One expensive building.
Yes.
Mhm.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we will go ahead to a vote. So all those in favor of approving the Franklin Learning Center general operating budget for 25-26, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That will bring us to drivers. Mr. Holtzman.
Yes, sir. We have 5 drivers, district employees who qualify according to our insurance matrix, and they're requesting to drive for the district.
All righty, thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the drivers as listed?
No move.
Move to approve.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving the drivers as listed, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, our last piece of business is financials. If we could do items 1 and 2 together. Dr. Holtzman, bring us home.
Yes, sir. So typical bills for payment requisitions that we have under item 1. Number 2 is a little additional information there. I did put some information in the administrative content if you have any questions, but it's always a negotiation process with property assessments and values. We have to work in conjunction, obviously, with the county as well, who has a piece of any type of an assessment change. And I think we did put the numbers in it there to show you what the assessment came in at and what was ultimately negotiated. So again, give credit to our solicitor who was able to help walk through that process as well.
All right. Very much. So, before us is a motion to approve financial business items 1 and 2. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, Mr. Smith is the first. Is there a second?
Second.
And Mrs. Zimmerman is our second. Any questions on the purchase orders and bills for payment or on the tax assessment? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, home stretch, folks. Clayton Cabinet, any comments from our Clayton team?
I do have one. Yes, sir. So
Yeah, more.
just very quickly, good news. Ashley Rock, our food service director, we are part of the Pittsburgh Regional Food Service Directors Group. That's how we use a lot of our consortium purchasing and buying power. So again, another consortium that we're in to help try to save some money and also get some better pricing at the end of the day. Anyway, she had applied for a charitable gift through their program. So they actually fulfilled the other $500 of a $1,000 grant to the district, and really kind of goes into the Waynesboro Community Human Services Backpack Program. So this is that backpack program where they're giving food to students here on weekends and long breaks and such. So again, thanks to her for putting it in, and thanks to the regional group for giving us the donation. Thank you.
Anything else from our Clayton team? Ready, I will move on to board member comments. Any comments from our school board?
I would just like to thank the 3 young ladies for coming. And I would encourage them, if they really want to get bored, to go to a township or a borough meeting sometime.
For bonus points.
Wonderful.
Extra credit there.
I'll speak for Zoe, who's not here. I think the color guard thing is next Saturday. Is that right? Yeah, that because she always, the last like 3 meetings, she said it. So we're gonna finish it off, 'cause we won't have a meeting before it. Okay.
There you go, color guard.
Yeah,
Right.
I think there's also, this is Kim.
Go
There's a
ahead,
play at the
Donna.
middle school next weekend, Friday night and Saturday in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. And then Mr. Smith, you had something?
Yeah, so I serve on the board of the Lincoln Intermediate Unit, and so If I don't know if everyone knows that Dr. Jerry West retired, and so Dr. McKaysey is the new director for LIU, and I'm going to be meeting with him on the 24th. He's meeting with all of the board members, and I think he's already met with most of the superintendents in the area that the LIU serves. So if there is anyone who would like to has any concerns about LIU or anything they would like for me to pass on to Dr. McKaysey, just email me or call me.
Alrighty. Thank you, Mr. Smith. For those that don't know, being on the school board is not the only function that board members fill. There's several other boards within the education world around the county that board members fill. So Mr. Smith is on the LIU board. Ms. Forney, you're also on one.
I'm on the Career Tech and the Franklin Learning Center.
And the Career Tech and the Franklin Learning Center. And so being a part of the Waynesboro School Board means that we're also part of these other entities that we participate with. So thank you all for your extra work on that as well. I think I will go ahead and wrap things up. I will share something fun. I know that fit days and the possibility of fit days are not as exciting for some of our students, the idea of going online to do school, but I will share for those that it is a new experience. It can be a very fun experience. I have 3 kids in the district, and my youngest was always jealous of his older sisters that they got computers to bring home and they got to go online and do stuff. And so now being in kindergarten, he was excited for his first fit day because he got to sign on and actually use his computer and got to chat with his little friends. And today they had a writing assignment, and I will go ahead. I'll just quickly read what his writing assignment was. He drew a picture. He says, I want it to snow. I want it to be a fit day. So out of the mouth of kindergartners, we'll see what happens. But thank you all to the administrators and the teachers. I know fit days have their own challenges, especially for teachers, those with multiple students juggling multiple schedules and things like that. So, but I do appreciate the work that goes into it. For some of our students and our learners, it is an exciting experience because they haven't. So on that note, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And I have a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed?
And James,
Hi.
please express to your son, for his wonderful contribution.
I will let him know. He'll be thrilled that he is on YouTube and national TV.
Yeah,
I
very
don't
good.
have no nays, and we are. So thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.